Well, that was the final story. So what happens? Here's this one is a picture of what it actually looked like. He snuck in some camera. This is one of the most famous participants in the history of psychology. I don't know if this person realized if that's your grandfather or something, Phil. But there, poor guy shows up, and then these other reasonably this is how people used to dress in college. I don't know what it was like. They look like professors. That's a student wearing a tie in college. What's going on? Yeah, that's a tie. A little askew. So obviously what's happened is this guy has just looked at these lines here and said, hey, what the heck's going on here? Oh, yeah, see, they said A. That was the film already. Yeah, we saw the film. Once you set up the experiment this way, suddenly there's as they say in science, a parameter. There's something you can vary. You can vary the number of people in the group. It might be part of the human condition that people would conform to the group. That is, they would say A when the other people said A, only when like 20 people in a row said A. It's a slightly discouraging result of the experiment that you get. Now, you don't get 100% conformity, and I'll make a comment on that in a moment, but you hit essentially maximal conformity once there's 4 people in the group. Once there's 4 people in the group, a whole bunch of people are saying A. And you add 10, 12 people, it doesn't make much more difference. There's something that people don't often point out about these experiments, though. It's hard to read the raw number. The raw number, percent conforming, is not like a raw number result of a physics or chemistry experiment. The raw numbers are partly a function of an arbitrary feature, the extent to which the lines are similar. So Ash ran an experiment where there's absolutely no doubt in all trials which line on the right matches the one on the left, and still gets these rates of conformity that peak at around 37%. He, of course, could have gotten higher rates of conformity by simply making the lines a little closer. You could get any conformity level you wanted if you made them really close. You'd probably get 100% conformity if everybody said A. The spirit of many of these social psychology experiments is a violation of expectations. Even when you might expect nobody would say A, it's obviously C. Even in that extreme circumstance, you get this 37% conformity. So though the film is correct in reporting that it's 37%, there are features of the experiment that are constructed by the experimenter. And often in social psychology, they aren't constructed to maximize the impact of the experimental manipulation, but frankly as a sort of a communication tool to you, to the world at large, to say, even in this situation where you might expect nobody will do anything, a whole bunch of people do something, suggesting that to a degree that's not only detectable but is surprising, there's an influence of crowd forces on people's behavior. Of course, the influence here is that, obviously people want to be accurate, and also there's no instructions. Nobody in the group ever says, what's wrong with you? Can you tell it's A? They're just sitting around saying A. So even in this simple world in which people merely observe somebody else doing something, you get instances where obviously essentially everybody gets it right by themselves, and a third of the time people get it wrong, even though it's just as easy a task when surrounded by other people. Sometimes the implications are so obvious I don't point them out, but this is suggesting that if groups can influence behavior, even in situations where there's clear-cut right and wrong answers, you can tell what's wrong and go with it anyway, then group influences, of course, might be very influential in cases where it's ambiguous what's correct, it's a political opinion, there's no absolutely true-false answer. So what Ash is thinking is that group conformity may be huge when it comes to social issues, political issues, and demonstrates that in the case in which there's clear-cut right and wrong answers, and you still get a bunch of people getting things wrong as a function of the influence of the group. That's the kind of lesson you get from social psychology. Often, as you'll see in a moment, for the next one, the social psychologist creates a study where it's almost like the deck is stacked against the experiment. Oh, nobody will ever do this. And you still get something happening, and you realize, oh, in the real world, the experimenter might be onto something. There might be a huge influence.